Welcome to the fine print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and today, on about 2 hours of sleep, I am joined by Chris Moroch from the Cannabis Collective in Stowe. Thank you so much for being here, Chris. It's great to finally have you on the couch.
Thanks for having me, man. I've been looking forward to it, and I know that I was, thinking about when we were going to make this happen, and I just wanted to make sure I had that license locked down, and we finally got that. So now it's time to talk.
Would you mind sharing your 5-minute life story with us, please, Chris? Can you hear me?
It's kind of skipped out a little bit.
Oh, would you mind sharing a 5-minute life story with us? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in Middlesex. I ended up going to high school at St. J because my parents thought it was a really good school, and I loved my time up there. It was a great school. I learned a lot, but really I wanted to go on adventures and be a ski bum. So when I was 18 in 2002, 2003, I moved out to Mammoth Lakes, California. Camping, living in my truck, and being an all-around ski bum, and kind of got into the business because being skiing and weed kind of always went together. And so when you're out in California and you skied all winter, it was real easy to go over to Humboldt and do some trimming and do some work and try to make enough money where you didn't have to do much. And that was kind of how I got into it. And but bummed around the West Coast a whole bunch. Colorado, Utah, Oregon, Washington, hitting all the ski mountains, doing a lot of climbing. I got really into climbing.
No shit.
And finally, I was doing a lot of other jobs. I was a cook. I worked in a lot of kitchens, and did masonry. Worked outside, hardscaping, landscaping, gardening.
Dude, a lot of masons in the cannabis community.
I noticed that. I love it.
Anyway,
you want to pick up heavy stones all day, you got to smoke weed, and that's just the way it's going to go, because you beat the hell out of yourself. It's just what you're going to end up doing. So kind of just cannabis went in hand to hand with all that, with all the athletics, with all the sports. It's like, how do you push yourself more? How do you keep going when you're beat up? And smoking weed and having that able to switch your mind a little bit to keep going was a big part of it all.
That's funny, because normally people associate weed with being a lazy stoner, but you're using it to keep going.
Well, as I like to say, if you're a lazy stoner, you were lazy before you were a stoner, probably. So, but some people like that joke, some people don't. So yeah, for me, it was always just like to do stuff. It was never just like a chill thing. I'm always trying to get up and get after it. So yeah. And that's pretty much probably right around, I remember my first time working on a real weed farm in Cali. It was in Mendocino and Comshi, probably right around 2011 or something. And I remember walking on the farm and being like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do. Like all the High Times magazines in high school and St. J and stuff, looking at that and being like, this is what I'm going to do someday. Like when I walked onto that farm, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Did a bunch more moving around, and then right around 2015, I was back in Vermont and did a big road trip out west and was working on weed farms, trimming and doing farm work wherever I could, and kind of got in a little bit of trouble for cannabis in Ohio, actually.
Oh, that's a shitty state to get in trouble, I feel like.
Yeah, I never trust a state shaped like a police badges, So got in some trouble, and that kind of cemented me for myself, being like, no, this sucks being in trouble, but this is what I really want to do, and kind of stopped doing everything else and just started doing cannabis stuff full time in California. And then right around 2017, 18, I saw what was happening with hemp and saw what was happening with cannabis in Vermont. It was like, man, I need to get back home, get back on it, be ahead of the curve a little bit. So moved back here and, kind of got into it.
So before we dive into the hemp, that's where I want to go next. But I'd like to hear a little bit about growing weed in California, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate to work with the really, really, well, I did some real sketchy stuff on some sketchy farms, which is, you know, kind of what you got to go through when you're working on the cannabis industry in California. But eventually settling in Whitethorn on my buddy, actually, who I moved to California with to be a ski bum in '03, JK. He was running a farm, like full on partnered up, because that was what he was doing. And he had a great place with a great family on a great farm. And they kind of like, we got into it. And my first year, we did a full debt build. And it was the first year that people were kind of going from doing full terms, just like having your plants that you plant and having, you know, the daylight, you know, from the changing seasons, make them flower, to planting depth beds in greenhouses and pulling black tarps over them to give them light deprivation to force them to flower, so you can get more than one grow in a season. And so, you know,
So you're growing all outdoor out there.
Yeah, all outdoor. Yep. Yeah, I mean, in Humboldt, the weather's just so nice, and it's dry. There's plenty of water around. And
so what's the point of even growing indoor over there, right?
Well, also that's so much bigger, man. Like there's so much demand. Like there's so much, like we look at some of the grows going up here and it's just like, that's nothing. There was farms I was working out that were growing, you know, 1,000, 3,000, 6,000 pounds a summer. You can't really, it's hard to do that in an indoor grow, no matter how big it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and almost all that stuff was being shipped back east, down south, you know, like I think Humboldt provides 70% of the can work was, you know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, to the rest of the country.
Now you told me about like a sort of a disturbing incident, man, with a car fire, and maybe like, I know there's a lot of like sort of cartel activity out there in California with illegal grows. Would you care to expand on that at all?
Humboldt has the largest amount of missing people in any county in the whole United States.
And that's the Murder Mountain sort of documentary.
Murder Mountain, yeah, right there. What the hell is that? I can't remember what it's actually called right now. It's escaping me. It's right now next to Redway and Garberville. We were on the other side of the 101 in Whitethorn, down by Shelter Cove. But yeah, I mean, just because of the scene, the cannabis, the money that's going through it, a lot of people travel there, and a lot of people, it is, you know, you think of California as this state with like these big cities and all this stuff happening, but Northern California is the Wild West. It has only been developed for like 100 years. And some of those mountains, like the only people out on those mountain roads are the families that grew up there, you know? And so you get these people coming there looking for work and stuff, and they jump in a sketchy situation and disappear. And things like, you see Murder Mountain, you see, there was a lot of positive things. Like there's a lot about Humboldt that's like Vermont. Like there's the farmers, there's the loggers, there's the people that have been there for a couple generations that, you know, have been through a lot. And it's a beautiful scene, but also there's like the cartels and the people that end up missing. And one time we were on our way to Reggae on the River, and there was, at the bottom of our driveway, there was a car on fire. And we didn't think anything, like there's people there putting it out. And it turned out later that there was 2 people in it that a cartel member had jacked and shot and set the car on fire, and, you know, kind of took off. And we like drove by it. We're like, oh, you know, whatever. So there's stuff like that. But like, as I always said, just like, if you had to be aware. Like if you're in a bar and if some guy was looking at you at the end of the bar, you didn't give him a hard time, you know, like you drank your beer and you left. You know, I didn't do stupid things.
I feel like that's happened to me before. Cool. So let's transition a little here and talk about when you came back home to Vermont. And so let's start, I guess, with the hemp. I guess that was the natural starting place. How'd you do in the hemp market?
I mean, my CBD business and hemp business has been doing really good. And, you know, I saw what a lot of people were doing and going, oh, we're going to plant as much as we can and try to sell it in bulk. And I was like, well, I'm going to make a website and I'm going to make some products and then grow to that need, you know, which wasn't a lot. So that's kind of what I did. So I was never outstretching myself and doing any more than I could. And also it was not, you know, like while that was happening, I was looking for a place that I could be growing cannabis when I knew it was coming. And so a couple years ago, I met Brian Buchek, and he had a CBD business and a farm, and he was having some problems because, you know, when you go from growing some weed here and there to all of a sudden trying to do it commercially or industrially, like it takes a second to figure it out.
Learning curve.
Learning curve. So I got on his farm, and I brought, you know, my buddy that was out in California that had his farm. 2017, 18, my last year there, his farm closed. I got here, I did work for 3 years in the CBD thing and trying to get set up. And then last year I was like, gave him the call. I was like, hey man, we got a farm. This is happening. Let's get back here. Let's practice on some CBD and see if we can get a system down. Got him out here, you know, worked on the farm last year. Real stoked with how our depths came out. There was some mold and stuff issues, but it was just a hard summer. It rained for 6 weeks last year. And you know, that took we figured out a lot of things, like having to have like really nice clean clones, making sure your genetics are good, making sure you have a nice organic preventative that you're treating your babies and your plants with all the way up until they're flowering. All these things that you need to do and nail so that at the end of it, you have these nice, really happy, healthy plants.
Now you said nice, clean clones. Did you have some bad clones at some point?
Yeah, well, it's just hard because like, especially with CBD, if like in California, we could go and be like, hey, we need 3,000 clones, this, and this. And there was people that were doing that, no problem.
3,000 rip.
You know,
wow.
Oh, yeah, that was, I mean, we had beds that we were planting 600 or 700 in, and we'd have 5 of them. I mean, we were doing, yeah. So, you know, 3,000 to 5,000 clones. We would make 2,000 or 3,000 clones, and we'd still buy 2,000 or 3,000 clones because we'd also do the replant.
Oh, so you're doing your own cuts and then also getting other people's.
Filling in, buying it, you know, because the more cuts you're doing, the money you're saving, because you're going to be spending $5-7 a clone, right? So you buy 3,000 of them, it stacks up. So the more you can cut and make yourself, the better it's going to be for you. So, but anyway, transitioning over to Vermont, like they didn't have that set up really. So it was like, oh, hey, can you get me this? And I need CBD cuts. Can you get me CBD cuts? And where can we get seeds and popping them and then being able to take cuts off of that so that, you know, we can fill up everything we need. And, you know, we got a lot of clones and they had PM on them from the start and some problems. And we're like, well, we can clean them. We can make them healthy, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you got moldy issues and PM issues right from the time they're clones, it's going to stick with them their whole life and it's just going to ruin stuff. So we learned that was a good lesson to learn, that you can't fix that kind of stuff. You have to have healthy things from the start.
The hard way is, I always learn best the hard way. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's true, man. I mean, that's the thing, is that is, you know, all of farming is, there's a lot of hard learning where you're like, shit, you know, and I feel like every year there's an oh shit moment. Like there was even at the first beginning years in Humboldt when I was doing it full time, we had the plant start doing some really weird stuff. And I was working with the guy that had been doing it for 15, 20 years in Humboldt. And he didn't know what the hell was going on. And it turned out that they were russet mites, which we had never seen in Humboldt before. And they started moving up south from like Mendocino, and you can't see them. You have to have a telescope to see them, but then they suck all the shit out of the buds and it just kills it. And we lost probably 40 grand worth of product that year because of those.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you mentioned farming. Didn't you say you grew up on a farm of sorts?
Yeah, so my grandfather had a farm. They were actually down in Connecticut in Colchester, and my parents were from Connecticut, but my grandparents, like great grandparents, are from like St. Albans, Hyde Park. But he had a horse farm, but it was more like a homestead you see in Vermont, where it has some chickens, some sheep, had a horse, had a bunch of, like, they did all their own veggies and all their own food and stuff like that. And that's a family farm, and that has been around for centuries, I think. Like my dad's family has a farm that has been working since like the 1700s or something.
All right. You know, I wanted to ask you, my notes are a little out of order because I've just been crazy lately. But so we did the hemp, and like maybe this like CBD product. Like what kind of products were you making with the hemp? Maybe we could run through that real quick.
Yeah, so you know, we've been making gummy bears since like, I don't know, day one almost. Like I was buying, making them. I had molds and I was just doing it in my kitchen. So it was like gummy bears are just like being a cook. It's so easy to just have a recipe and mix it all together and know exactly how much distillate you're getting. So we were growing the hemp, having it made into distillate, and then making gummy bears. We were doing the oils, we were doing salves, we were doing, the pre-rolls and the loose flower of CBD, pet oils.
And where were you selling those products?
Well, we were selling a bunch of the shops in Stowe. Like we had it at the Spruce Peak Lodge. We had it at Stowe Bath and Kitchen, at Chamomiles, and then we started a website because with hemp you can sell it and you can send it to all 50 states through the mailing post office. So we started the website, and then that's what we were doing, and then we transitioned into getting into farmers markets I think this is our second season. So we were going to Stowe Farmers Market whenever they had an opening, and then Burlington Farmers Market when they had an opening, and started kind of getting some traction that way.
And were you guys processing your own material?
Well, we've been working with a couple different labs. Like there was a guy in Hardwick, I can't remember his name. That was my first. We took all of our stuff there and he blasted it with some ethanol, organic ethanol, kind of like what Extract Vermont's doing. But like a lot of those places closed down and we had to find new ones. And then the last time we got a process, we've just been using Extract Vermont. Shout out to those guys. They absolutely
Grayson, Trev. Yeah.
They kill it. We love those guys. And we're looking forward to working with them through this whole cannabis market as well.
And it seemed like that was sort of the bottleneck in the thing. Everyone was like, hey, we're going to grow a ton of hemp. And then it's like, oh shit, now what do we do with it?
Well, also there was a lot of people that were like corn farmers that had just thought that they could plant fields of hemp and that it was going to be all cool and, they'll be able to sell it and make some money. And it's just like cannabis isn't corn. It's pretty difficult. And if you don't do it right, you're not going to have a very good product. And then, where are you going to sell it? So I think the first year there was 4,000 farms doing CBD. And this year there's 3 registered CBD farmers in Lamoille County.
From what I heard, I believe this was John Rogers who told me, he said about 90% of the hemp companies went out of business in that first year.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. That is a rough attrition rate.
I mean, with the way we're going at it, if this keeps going, if we keep doing good at CBD, it's a lot easier getting permitted for that than cannabis. So it's like, we'll see. I mean, I love the cannabis aspect of it. So whatever we can do, we're going to do. But CBD. But
do you think CBD might be in the end like a more profitable item?
I mean, I can sell everywhere. I can sell it to all 50 states. I can send it through the mail. And so it's like, how much time can you put into marketing and promoting nationally with it? So, I mean, eventually, do I think that we will have a federal, the restriction lifted federally for cannabis and we'll be able to sell craft Vermont cannabis to all 50 states? Yeah, but maybe 10 years. Right now, we can do that with hemp. So it's like, who knows? If I do it right, it could be all I need to do.
Well, you might not even need to dip the toe in it.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you this at the top, but could you please tell us what type of licenses that you are trying to get here, or you've already been approved for, right?
Yep, for tier 2 cultivation outdoor and tier 2 manufacturing. So pretty much doing what we were doing with the CBD and transitioning that over to the cannabis, where we want to be growing everything, having the farm, taking that, cutting all the premium flower, selling that as premium, and then turning the rest into, products so that there's very little waste. Here, let me close my thing.
Yeah, close your thing, man.
Sorry about that.
I don't care. I'm a disaster this morning. You take your time, man. What the fuck? Where were we? So the manufacturer. Can I ask you about Matt Lindemer? Because he's a guy that I just really have enjoyed getting to know, and I was wondering if you would mind talking about him.
Oh man, he's great. He's fantastic, and he's one of those other companies around here that he's been doing a very similar thing to us. He had a CBD company and was making the gummies themselves and all that stuff and killing it in his own right. And, at first, when I first heard about him, everyone was playing it off like we were competition and all this stuff. And then I met the kid at the farmer's market. He was walking by and I was like, hey, Matt, because I knew him from high school. I was like, come here. And he was like, yeah, what's up? I was like, hey, dude, I heard CBD. He's like, yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'm like, me too. Let's talk. And so we ended up getting together and chatting a bunch. And, we had similar interests, similar, thoughts of what's going to happen in the future and where we wanted to go. So we kind of teamed up, and that's where, his cannabis, Lamoille County cannabis store that's going in. Half of that's going to be a dispensary. The other half's a manufacturing facility. And that's me and him are going to be in there slamming out gummies and salves and oils and pre-rolls and anything else we can do.
Now, let me ask you this on a sort of like, I don't know, a cerebral note. What caused that sort of change in your mindset where you're like, this is the competition? And like, wait a minute, like what sort of made that click in your head?
Man, I'm a pretty competitive person in nature. And like just being an athlete and a skier and doing all that, but I've always found that really the competition is in myself. And that's what I'm really trying to beat and be better at, is myself. And whenever I've had a part in my life where I've fought something because I get competitive with somebody else, it's not like, it's not a good thing. And so like working with people and having a community is the only way I feel like this can be a sustainable thing for everyone. And I feel like a lot of people, I met a guy at the Headies that told me this. He's like, everyone looks at it like there's just like this infinite amount of things, money for people to make, and they all have to compete for it, when really there's enough for everyone and we can work together to make that happen. And so like when I meet Matt Lindemer, he's in Lamoille County doing his thing. And then there's like Lauren LePage at Hybrix Cannabis doing her thing. And we all started talking together and started like being like, hey, let's do this together. Let's help promote each other and see what we can do, see what that aspect, instead of like in Humboldt, everyone fought each other. Everyone wanted to be better. Every farm talked shit about the other farm and blah, blah, blah. And there was all this animosity. And instead of going that route, like, let's see if we can build each other up and make it a community here in Lamoille County with everyone else to have something super positive. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Getting sappy on me.
I tend to be.
Well stated, dude. That's a fantastic point. And I've said this a number of times, but I think is cooperation is going to be really important, especially in a state this small, if we're going to sort of stave off the corporate influence, and let small growers be competitive in the market.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. All right. Let's just run down the list. It's all out of order. Let's talk about, it was interesting. We were talking about some of your farming techniques. I thought really that was, or your thoughts on sort of building soil and things of that nature. I thought I wasn't expecting you you busted that out kind of surprisingly on me, but I'd love to hear about some of that stuff.
Well, in Humboldt, a lot of the times when you're doing stuff, you don't have like really nice soil, and you have to like truck soil in and put all these amendments in it. And like you hear these words like live soil and the microbiome and the microorganisms that are in it and all this stuff. And in California, it's kind of like you get the soil that has some compost in it, you throw some back guano and some trace minerals in it, and you just try to get the things that are going to make the best cannabis. You can't just plug plants in the ground, they'll just die. And here in Vermont, we have this beautiful, rich soil that has been in these fields for so long. And it's like the transition from being in California to, making these, I don't know how to say it, like, it's almost like taking it from a science to an art, like where you know what you need to have, but then you can, when you figure it out, you see what you need to have, or you see what you do have. And being back here in Vermont, like being able to work directly in this soil that has all these organisms and has all this really nice stuff in it, and it's really healthy for the plants. It's like a step above what California is doing, I feel like. So, yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Have you followed along with the control board proceedings or the legislation or any things of that nature?
A little bit, we work with the lawyers at VSC or Vermont Cannabis Solutions. And of course, we've been going to the luncheon and all the events. So talking to people and all that. So a little bit.
Hmm. And it sounds like that's a good time to ask you about your average work day, because it sounds like maybe that doesn't leave you a lot of time to check in on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I usually get up around 5 or 6. Sleeping in would be to 7, and pretty much just like work all day. Like my first thing is talk with the guys at the farm, see what's going on, head that way, make sure we have everything we need going. There's always stuff that needs to get done there, whether it's pruning or it's fertilizing or you're spraying or you're weeding. Because we have the det beds and we have the field going on right now, so it's consistently checking in on that. And then right now we're really trying to get this manufacturing facility up and going so that when we get those finalized licenses approved, I feel like we're going to be behind, because October is going to come and we're going to only have so much ready to go out the doors because we don't have that much time to get ready for it. And so we're trying to really set that up and get a team in there that's knows what they're doing. I think we got them. Like, we got some killers in there right now that are ready to go when we say go. So
now, is your manufacturing facility all built out already?
Yep.
So tell me, like, I believe you said that kind of Matt just took care of all like the zoning and the fire marshal stuff and all of that stuff.
Well, it's great when you find other people that are working just as much as you and have that vision, have that drive.
He's a maniac, dude. He's a workaholic, that kid.
Yeah. And he found that building with his investor. And as soon as he got it, I mean, Matt has been working with the town of Morrisville to have that store since day one. Been going to the town meetings, going, I want a store.
He goes to the like select board meetings and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, he was.
Wow.
For sure.
Okay, cool.
So he was one of the reasons that whole town, it got approved so quickly, I feel like, because he was there doing the work. And as soon as he got that building, he was on the phone with DRB, getting that thing, zoned properly, getting the fire marshal in there, making sure all that, getting their, what do you call it? How many people you can have in there?
Yeah, capacity or whatever, occupancy, whatever.
Yeah. So figuring all that stuff out. So that was, that's one of the things that he did almost like right off the bat.
Well, that was fucking mighty nice of him.
Yeah,
that stuff is obnoxious.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that I feel like that's part of having the crew and having the people that are good. Like, you don't see right now my better half, Hannah, she's my business partner. She's also my life partner. She's amazing. She's not feeling the best right now, but like, I'm good at growing weed. I'm good at like working. I work, like put hard labor, like put my head down and do it. Matt Lindemer is really good at doing those things, seeing where he needs to be, talking with the town, being that public figure. Hannah's really, really good at like the design stuff and the
why don't you tell us a little bit about Hannah's involvement in the business, please?
I mean, yeah. So Hannah is, she grew up in Stowe. I've known her for forever, almost 8-9 years. We met working at a restaurant in Phoenix and Stowe, 2014, 2015. And we always kind of flirted and stuff, but it never really meant too much. And then when I moved back in 2017, we started dating. And it kind of worked out really well. And so she, though, went to school and went to college for like creative writing and website stuff, and has got involved with a couple different companies designing their thing. Like, she does all the stuff for Black Diamond, does some Instagram things like Eat Vermont. She's one of the crew on that. And then she got
Black Diamond, like the ski apparel?
Eat Vermont?
But no, Black Diamond, like
Black Diamond barbecue. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, a little different. Yeah,
that's just delicious though.
Yeah, no, it is. But then she, now she's been running the Stowe Farmers Market and the Burlington Farmers Market for the last 3 years or so, and been kind of crushing it out doing stuff like that. So, but she's really like all of our label design. She's done all of our packaging. She's done. She does all of our website stuff, all the Instagram stuff. So all those things that I know nothing about,
So you didn't
She's
hire
really
you
good
didn't
at it.
hire anyone to do that, because I know I talked to Will Red at Canna Planners, and a lot of people are outsourcing that kind of stuff. So Hannah handled all of that.
Yep.
Man,
With a
I need.
little like building the website for our CBD company, we had some other friends that we used, but it's
Sure.
been nice. Like it's they're making a really unique thing that looks specifically Hannah to me, at least. Like I can see what she's doing, what my friends are doing,
Hmm.
so it's pretty sweet.
Hmm. Now, it's got to be kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, I guess, right, we should talk about the packaging and labeling maybe right there, because um, you know, every different product you got flower jars, you got pre-rolled tubes, you got the little concentrate things, you got all kinds of stuff, and each one of those has to have some kind of label on it, right? So you need, not only do you need your logo and shit in different sizes, but you also need like the packaging with all the information in these different sizes and shapes, it looks like.
Yeah, and then that's one of those things that Hannah's really good at, and she's like read all the rules, knows exactly what they need to put on the packaging, and exactly how to get that in there. One of the biggest pain in the asses is having, being able to have your logo on it, have all those warnings on it, have the ingredients on it, and then have a package that's appropriately sized to the product. Like it's almost like you need a fucking thing this big to have all that on it. But
I've
really, you
seen
just want a pack of 20 gummies that's like this.
and I've seen some containers like that. I actually just saw some Maine medical packaging where there was this big giant glass jar that had like 4 grams of wax in it, and then a little tiny one that had 6 grams in it. It's like this. Some of those products are just so overpackaged. It's insane. It's so wasteful.
Well, for look, thinking about like how we're trying to be environmentally friendly and like not waste anything, like having these crazy packages with all this stuff on it is kind of counterintuitive for me.
Right. And this is maybe a good transition to the farmers market thing, because that was something I thought, like, maybe if farmers were allowed to just take your flower down to the farmers market, I don't know, maybe put it in a big jar and you can serve it out without all the overpackaged bullshit.
But I really think that like farmers market's like a really beautiful tradition in Vermont, and being able to be a farmer or a manufacturer, or craft person, and have this market where you can go directly, meet people and talk to them is an amazing thing. And we're selling booze at these things, like there's no reason like we can't look at it and have another regulated substance there like cannabis, especially because cannabis is so much safer than alcohol. And right now it's like people are treating it like it has this taboo thing of what it used to be and the propaganda that we grew up with, when really we can all be adults and find a safe way to do it and have it at farmers markets, I feel like, and understand that we're going to be safe when we're giving it out to adults and IDing people and
Right. Well, it
doing all
is an
that.
adult use market.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me, it felt like all this concern about children. And look, nobody wants children getting a hold of cannabis. Nobody, not a single person I've met wants that.
No.
But at the same time, like, also, yeah, nobody's going to be doing that. And I think maybe that's, yeah, like you said, some of that leftover reefer madness, like, oh, if we legalize, then kids are going to, like, the kids already have it. All right. They're
Yeah.
going to get it
It's
anyway.
everywhere. Just
Hmm.
like there's beer, like there's high school kids drinking beers and stuff. I mean, when I was in high school, there was at least. And
Yes, there was.
that stuff will kill you. Yeah. St. J.
Yeah, and they were actually giving out free booze at a farmer's market I went to. They're like, here, try a free shot. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Insane.
exactly. And like I really feel like one of the things that with talking to the select board at some of these farmers markets, having Hannah as a source for them, being able to try to get some backing, and then trying to maybe when the farms close this winter, really talk with the CCB and be like, hey, we think this is a plausible thing. That if you have a farm and you don't have a store or a retail spot and you want to sell directly to customers, like there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that here in Vermont.
Right. And you could grow tomatoes and take that down there, right? Or any
Yeah.
other sort of vegetable.
Zucchini, you could be brewing beer. You could be making vodka. Bring it down to the farmer's market and sell it. Cider.
God damn it. I'm going to move to the next topic before I get stuck on that one. I wanted to ask you a little bit about security, because we had some notes here and I thought you had some interesting comments. about sort of like first of all, what kind of security measures are you required to have for your cultivation?
For tier 2, it's like, so the bigger, they have a whole list of security features that they want you to have. The base tiers, they want you to pick one, and as you move up in tier, you need to add one to it. So I think for us at tier 2, we needed to have a fence around the property. We needed to have like lights and stuff. We added trail cams for all the entrances and exits and then around the field. We have someone that's living there as security. Well, he's one of the farm hands, but he's also living there and doubles as security.
Night watch.
And also, we've been really good at talking like with Roger McHugh, the sheriff, and the local police in Morrisville, who
No kidding.
that, you know, being like, hey man, this is what we're doing, this is what we have. If we have a problem, can we call you when you get up here? And they're like, absolutely.
So you approached a cop and a sheriff with that?
Well, my partner, Brian Buchek, who has Old School Cannabis, he, you know, he's been in Morrisville for a long time. He's been in Lamoille County. He's been working at a school. He's a soccer dude. He knows all the cops down there, and he told them, he chatted with all of them, made them very aware of what's going on. And we feel pretty confident that if we needed some help from them, that we could give them a call and they'd come help us out.
That would be the hope.
Yeah.
We were talking about sort of putting up like warning signs and maybe how that's not the greatest idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, people are so used to seeing these fields of CBD everywhere, like everywhere. And so like we've been growing CBD there for 4 years or something, or Brian was, and me there for 2 years now. And like if we all of a sudden we were thinking about putting up these warning, don't come on cannabis, camera signs, like all this stuff, but why are we going to draw attention to it? If we just keep doing what we're doing, people are just going to think that we're doing what we're doing. And then we have like the floodlights, and if someone does sneak on at night, some high school kids, like, you know, that's what we're worried about. Is I don't think like it's like Humboldt, where the drug cartel is going to show up and put guns in your face and be like, give us your weed. But yeah, high school kids sneaking on, like, you know, whatever. We got lights, we can see them, we can call the cops, have them scare them and stuff. Like, we don't need to like be worried too much about it, I don't think.
Have you ever had any type of robberies before at any of the places you're
I've worked at farms for sure, where the, you know, cartel members showed right up and took everything, burned stuff down.
Damn.
Oh yeah.
That must be
the first place I ever got. I think the second in Mendocino and Comshy, I think the second day I was there, the other farm, because they had twin farms, because a lot of those places would get one spot permanent and then move and get another spot going. They showed up out of nowhere and were like, these Mexican guys just showed up and took everything, blah, 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 guns in our faces, tied us up. And then they left and someone had to show up and like cut them free and stuff. And
Jesus.
So I was like, what am I doing?
Right. Is this a meth lab or a cocaine lab? Like, Jesus, that's crazy. You don't normally associate weed with those kind of sort of violent robberies.
Yeah. I mean, it was just as scary as having like a feds copter buzz you. You know, that to this day, when I hear a helicopter, I'm like, oh shit.
What's going on? Helicopters flying over?
Oh man, there was this one place. I was in Grass Valley on the Yuba River, and it was a real primitive area. So they had all their camping and stuff hidden in the woods, and you would like camouflage it so you couldn't see it. And there was a huge field, and there was a black helicopter doing grids. So that means that they fly one way and then fly the other way, and they grid out a certain section and check everything. And it hit our field and they stopped right over it and just like, we're there. I had another farm where they actually landed, and they landed, and we were hiding in the woods ready to take off. And they got out, checked some things out, got back in and left. And we were like, we don't know what's going on, but then they never came back. So we just kept working.
They found it and then they left.
Well, this was probably 2015. So there was a lot of weed. So they probably stopped, checked it out, and then kept flying and noted it somewhere. And they probably found a bigger spot. You know, it was only a couple.
We'll come back later.
Yeah.
Mark it on the map. Damn. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I don't like the black helicopters.
Nope.
Now, let me ask you. I was going to ask you about gun rights. Are people in California are these growers carrying guns? Because I've asked the control board members
Yeah.
sort of
I
about
mean, I
this.
think a lot of farmers do, right? I think a lot of people that are in the country and are worried about people robbing them or not, the cops not being able to show up in time, have guns. I mean, here in Vermont, we certainly grew up with guns. I had my hunter safety license when I was 9. I still have it in my wallet. You know, we were always had rifles and pistols around, and we were always shooting them. I was hunting when I was a kid, and I think that we grew up respecting and know how to properly use a firearm. Out in California, like I think one of the biggest issues you were seeing is these cops would come in and bust bust a weed farm. And then the biggest trouble is that they'd have a gun on products, like a 22, like a little target rifle. And they would get in a lot of trouble because now all of a sudden you have, drugs and guns. And
You're looking
that's
at
when
a
you go to
federal,
court,
yeah.
that's what it is, drugs and guns. And it makes the charge way bigger. And I think one of the things is like in the 2A world, one of the biggest things, like you can have alcohol, you can have antidepressants, you can have medications like Ambien from a doctor, and you can own a gun. But if you have a weed license and you own a gun, they treat you like you're a criminal. And it doesn't make sense, especially like on farms like we have or other farms where, in California where people could show up and rob you. I mean, I don't know if that's really going to happen here, but it might.
I mean, it's never out of the question, right?
Never. Yeah, exactly. Look at how the state's treating you. They want you to have all these security things. They want you to have all these measures. They want, stores to have bulk, safes and stuff to put all their products so that people aren't breaking in and stealing it. But then when it comes to, having self-protection like a gun or something, they're like, no, you can't do that.
Well, and I'm not going to put that one on the state because I feel like that one's a little over their head, and that goes to a federal level that they're not even going to touch, which I understand. But
I mean, state of Vermont has always been very like you don't need a permit to carry a.
But all the farmers I know carry guns. That's just the way it is, or they got one close by.
Absolutely.
Let's see. What about this is going to be an awkward transition. These are just all over the place. Yeah. Let's go into a little bit. I wanted to hit on the maybe the banking.
We just got some new updates actually today. So we have our banking through VSECU, and whatever we got it. We got a rate. I think it's like 1.5. You said 1.8. Percent of whatever's going through your checking, but you can have money in a savings account and they don't charge you.
I had not heard that before.
Yeah.
And that's what they told you.
Yep. Yeah, I have it on paper. Hannah has all that. I apologize.
Trying to take the credit.
So when you get approved, when your application gets approved, the state sends you a thing, hey, you've been approved. Now you have to show us proof of banking and insurance, and then we'll send you your license. So, my partner, Brian, he got approved after us. We knew what was going on. And I told him, like, just call VSECU, blah, 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 blah. Well, he's been in contact with them. They've been blowing him off. This morning, he got an email saying, we're not doing any more business with any cannabis companies. So VSECU apparently is out. Wow. We don't know why.
So, and NESCU has this sort of tiered fee structure. So if that's all that's left, boy.
Well, there's still the New England Federal Credit Union, I think, is still doing things. I didn't go with them because their rates were a lot higher than VSECU.
And they're merging. And now VSECU is saying, we're not taking them. And we're going with this other bank who has sort of higher rates. Although for certain tier, I have worked this out where it works out better for certain tiers, but there are definitely some license types or like the multiple license types where they're going to make more. Oof. Yeah. So, I'm going to have to, and you just found that out today.
Yeah, I just found that out because I was talking about it with Brian. He's like, so VSECU isn't doing it anymore. And I was like, I haven't heard anything yet. We called up VCS, Cannabis Solutions, and they were working on it. Austin and Christina were working on it as of this morning when I left the farm, trying to figure it out.
Curious.
Yeah, very.
It seems like, and it's weird that they would even announce that they were going to take cannabis accounts if they were just going to go ahead and then not take like. So what happens?
Yeah, well, I want to know, are they going to cancel my account?
Right, exactly. What happens? Like, did they just automatically bump you over to any FCU, or
Or
yeah.
are they just saying we're not taking any more? We have a max.
Right,
You know,
like
maybe like we don't have, we can't do any more because we had a certain amount we can work with and we're at our max.
Right. A little clarification would be lovely on that piece.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, considering I know people in California that have been doing it for 10 years that still don't have banking, I was shocked with how easy it was for me to get banking for my cannabis thing, because a lot of people haven't had that luck. I mean, I think that maybe having the CBD business did a lot of preliminary work, so I knew what to do. Like, it was a pain in the ass to get a CBD bank account. It was a pain in the ass to get my CBD insurance, and just to even work with Square to have a credit card processor.
Oh yeah, your transactions and shit, huh?
So
how much do they charge you? What's the Square percentage?
4.5 or something.
4.5
per transaction.
God damn, dude.
God, they want their money.
Dude, everybody's got to get their piece, man.
Yeah, maybe there'll be some left for me.
I hope so. And you mentioned the insurance real quick. You also, and I wanted to just talk about, you said you were working with Josh McDuff, and he was going to sort of, I'll let you tell the story, and word up to Josh. He was supposed to come on, I had to bump him, but he's going to come on later this week, hopefully, Josh. But yeah, tell us about the experience with the insurance.
Well, Josh was the guy. We met him at all the luncheons for VCS, and him and his wife, and they were great. And he was trying to set it up so that they would give you a piece of paper saying, "Hey, we're an insurance company that once this company gets their approval from the state, we'll insure." And when everyone was stoked, we're like, "Hell yeah!" And when that and plus his rates seemed like they were really low. So that's sweet because I already paid a bunch of money for my other company. But in May, when the company started turning that in, the CCB was denying it. So we had to go and we talked to our insurance company, Titus Insurance, up in.
Did they tell you?
Shelburne.
Did they tell you why they were denying it?
Because they wanted that was just like them writing a statement saying, "Hey, we will insure it." Where if you actually talk to an insurance company, I think, and like get your quote. Like you're set up to get insurance as soon as it's ready to go. Like you're working with an insurance company. That's my guess. I don't know. And I just remember that they were getting turned down, and we started talking with Roger, and Roger's like, "Listen, you already have cannabis insurance. CBD insurance is cannabis insurance. So you're just copying. We'll just do the same thing." And I was like, "Do it. Go for it." So
interesting. It's not. I hate insurance. It's the least interesting subject in this whole fucking industry, and I'm not looking forward to talking to Josh, but I am because he's a great guy and he knows his shit cold.
So smart.
It's just all the important shit is so fucking boring. Do you want to talk about the Korean natural farming stuff a little bit and some of the probiotic stuff? Because I really enjoyed your comments on those sort of techniques.
I've always, when it comes down to the farming stuff, every farmer you talk to is going to have a different opinion. And here in Vermont, like there's so many different ways that people are doing organic, clean food and cannabis and all that. And I always find it interesting. And it's always a discussion that I always like to get in with people when it comes down to what you're doing when you're doing something like, say, Korean natural farming, like they're taking, and don't get me wrong, I don't farm like that. Like I don't take rice and ferment it and add this milk and ferment it to do this and that. Like a lot of the stuff that we're doing is working directly with the soil to put the stuff in the soil that is going to be good for it, having an organism in there, having your worms and your worm castings and,
Compost? Are you composting?
Oh yeah, compost tea, all that stuff right into the soil so that you're trying to get everything in there that the plant needs. Where the Korean, I feel like please someone get a hold of me and correct me if I'm wrong. But like how I always saw it is that like you're taking what you have in the situation to ferment or synthesize a way to say like you need nitrogen. And that's how in Korea they could make nitrogen. It was by taking this rice and this milk and fermenting it and causing this, reaction so that you have a nitrogen rich thing that you can then put on your plants or put in the soil.
Why?
So
Because they
that
didn't
they
have
have.
the manufacturing capacity to sort of make
Well,
that.
that's how they were doing it. If it's 200 years old, there was no such thing as water soluble nitrogen, right?
So
Well,
that's like what these techniques go back a couple of hundred years.
I think so, maybe even longer than like
Yeah,
centuries.
maybe. Yeah, I was hoping you knew some Korean history, but I won't grill you on
No, I don't. But like, like you meet these people that are doing it like that, and then you have other people on the other spectrum that are like using some of the salts and some of the water solubles. And I think that it's kind of it's not hypocritical. Someone's going to yell at me for this, I know it. But it's like you are using what you have to make this technique to get a chemical so that you can feed your plants. What's the difference between that and using something like a water soluble that's coming out of a lab? Like, people that are smoking distillates, that are smoking concentrates, like you're using solvent, no matter if you're using water or CO2, but you're making a product by taking, like something that has a chemical in it and drawing it and isolating that one thing and then using it for your whatever you're using it for. And what's the difference between doing it with natural farming techniques or using a water soluble? I don't really know. I know a lot of people talk shit about salts and stuff, and in California we used a lot of that. We definitely were jack juicing
There's
up.
definitely a little bit of tension between the salt-based nutrient people and like the organic people. And honestly, I am not qualified to even comment on that. But yeah,
I'm sure I'll get yelled at by someone's like, that's none of what you said is right. And like, I don't know, but it's like, there's a marketing and promoting almost when it comes to organic and when it comes to clean and when it comes to like solvent less. Like when you have all the hash people that are sitting there going, this has never had a solvent, well, it has water. Water is a solvent, but I get it. It's not ethanol, it's not CO2, right? But when it's going through a lab and it's getting cleaned and tested, like I've seen BHO, which is butane hash oil, and people will say, well, this is a better product because of this. And it's like, well, this is a better product because of the time and effort and knowledge someone put into it, not because they used water instead of butane or water instead of CO2 or water instead of ethanol, so, and you can have a really nice product that from either of those, however you do it.
So it's not always. I used to see this with guys who would make beats where they would have a really nice studio, but they didn't know how to use any of the gear.
Yeah.
And then I would see guys that had just like a tiny little keyboard that were fucking sick with it that could crank out amazing shit.
Well, dude, have you been up to Extract Vermont?
I have not, but I am going to go. They invited me up for a little tour, and I'm definitely going to take them up on it.
It's a science lab. It's like, I geek out over that stuff, like seeing all the equipment and the beakers and the vials and how they do it. And like, you can look at it and hear something like ethanol or CO2 or butane, and you get this like negative image. But what they're doing is science, and how they can pull out and isolate terpenes and cannabinoids and all that stuff is really fascinating and really a next level thing.
It fucking is.
Like nano powder, sweet.
Yeah, like talk about that. That was the next note right there.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like talking about water soluble, like your nitrogen or your potassium or your phosphorus, like you can take distillate and you have this device that vibrates at such a frequency that it causes the molecules to turn into a powder. And I think that they do have a binder to it, but it turns into a powder that then you can take and add into water or any drink, and that dissipates into it and becomes 5 milligrams of THC. And so like, it's a pretty sweet science that they figured out to get there to it, So I don't know. That's one of those examples where, or like, look at the nutrition market or the supplemental market where they'll have like water soluble greens or water soluble nitric oxide, stuff that you take to get healthy. But then you have like a water soluble nitrogen to feed your plants, and people look at it as a negative thing because they're like, well, that's salts and that's gonna blah 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 to the soil. And it's like, well, what? And one's thing over here, it's like good for you, and over here, it's just not good for you. And I don't know.
I wonder if there's a difference in the manufacturing process that maybe makes it detrimental.
Probably.
Or the containers that they package it in, or
something. The size of the company,
sure.
Like who's the company? Like you say that you're working with, like you're getting Miracle Grow, blah, 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 blah for Monsanto, you're going to get in a lot of trouble where if you find like, you go up to Green State Gardener and they have this water soluble stuff up there that's like $250 a bag, that, like is an organic rated thing. Like, but I don't know what the difference is besides the company.
And you know what? I would like to know too. I thought that was a legit question. And I did send that to a couple people. They didn't get back to me, but if we got any chemists listening to this or
yeah, just tell me, because these are things everyone needs to understand. This is just me thinking in my own head from observing stuff. Like this is not me being a professional or a scientist or anything.
Right, but I've heard reasonable arguments on both sides of this one.
Yeah.
I hope we get an answer.
To my rambling.
No, that was great rambling. Talk about genetics a little bit. How do you sort of select genetics to survive up here? Or I believe at one point you said maybe you were also popping some seeds as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple different strands that we've been working with. Like, I don't know, genetics is a funny thing, and I think we're gonna start seeing some really nice companies popping up around here. Pretty much, yeah, we are doing a mix of cutting clones and popping seeds, and then probably also gonna have to buy a bunch of stuff as well. And being able to, it's so hard because here in Vermont, like last year, we had a really shitty middle of the season, like August into the beginning of September just rained, and it ruined a lot of plants. But then if your plants made it through that September to like November, it was super nice. So like you could have a longer, a genetic that went longer into the season and did better, where the things that I'm trying to plant this year at like 45 days, 50 days, if it had been last summer, they would have done really bad because they'd be budding and getting rained on during that. So we're just trying to do what we can to find, a lot of people are like, well, we have these genetics that are PM resistant and botrytis resistant. And I agree that there are certain things like, what's the big one? Kush, Bubba Kush. For some reason, every time I've grown that in Vermont, it's just like molded. Doesn't do well. But I also think a lot of the things that people see are not having clean plants from the beginning, like not having your clones room set up or not taking clones in a proper way so that there's too much humidity. When they're young, they're getting mold on them or they're starting the PM. You're not giving them.
What is the proper way to take clones? Would you tell us that?
Well, the first thing is you want a really clean spot, a really clean station, and when we take clones, you have your mother plant inside like a tent that's really clean, that has the proper humidity, that you don't want it too humid. You don't want water and stuff collecting on the sides. You don't want anything where like that can grow, and you don't want it too hot because if you have a tent that's in the 80 degrees and a bunch of humidity, you're going to grow mold. And so having a healthy mom that you're cutting using a razor blade, finding the top of the plant and into the middle. Well, the top isn't supposed to be the best hormones, but the side's supposed to have the most amount of hormones. Cutting your clones and then making sure that it's clean and that you're getting them into your, there's a hormone powder or gel that you dip your clones in, and then you can either put it into a block or you can put it into like these things that spray water up underneath it and cause them to root. And then you have to, take care of them, put them in humidity domes. A lot of people like to put them on pads that get it into the 80 degrees and put a dome over it and spray them. And it just causes them to get moldy and rot. And it's kind of difficult because when you first cut them and they don't have roots, the only way they're getting energy is through absorbing water through their leaf. So you have to consistently be spraying them for the first couple of days until they start popping roots. But then there's a fine line where you have to get that dome off and really allow air and oxygen to get in there and allow them to start taking up nutrients through their roots, and so that you don't have any mold issues.
How fine is the line? How quickly does that happen?
Fucking a day, man. I've seen it go from like everything's going good to, oh, I just ruined my year. Like it really is quick. And it's just one of those things that you experience by like doing it a bunch and doing it over and over and ruining a bunch of things to be able to really start to understand like when you can have the dome. If you're using a dome, some people just cut them and put them in soil But it's like when you start getting into commercial industrialized thing, you need to be able to make a shitload. And like doing them one at a time in soil, you just can't really do it fast enough. Can't do enough.
And so definitely Vermont seems like a place, like in the morning, it's always like you get that mountain fog rolling down into the valley. And, apparently if you're up a little bit on the hill, that's nicer because that fog, boy, that rolls right down. That must be like tricky to how are you situated?
We're right up on a hill. We're on top of the hill. We got sun all day. We watch the fog float away, baby. Yeah, we're not down by a river, which is really nice for like that reason, actually.
Have you ever grown in an environment where you have that fog issue to deal with?
Yeah, where we were in Humboldt, it was like that, but it's different. It's just so dry there that as soon as the fog's gone, it's like dries up.
Damn. And so let me ask you this: when you start to see mold, powdered mildew, what's the first thing you do? Get it out of there?
It depends on how bad it is. Like you can get a cleaner, like some hydrogen peroxide cleaner.
The Moroch and that kind of shit.
What is it? BioWorks that has organic stuff. They have a lot of different things, but it's pretty much just hydrogen peroxide. You're not supposed to spray your plants after they start flowering, right? So you have a preventative, like we use a JMS style oil. That stuff's an amazing organic oil. Kills PM and botrytis, like no problem. But once it starts flowering, you don't want that on your buds, so you stop spraying, right?
Why not?
Because you don't want that oil on your buds that you're going to be smoking or turning into stuff, right? Like if you're spraying, it's an oil that sits on the plant. So like soon as they're fruit, like just like an apple or a pear or plum, like you don't want to spray that stuff when the fruit's present, because that's what people are going to be using. So you stop spraying it. So, but if you start seeing PM pop up, there are other preventatives you can do, all the way from, if you see botrytis, you can cut it out and be really careful about not mixing the spores anywhere. Most of the time, if we see it popping up, it's a very small amount. You don't want to fuck with it too much because you don't want to spread those spores. If it's getting really bad and your crop's close enough to being done, you cut it all down, is what you kind of want to do. But hopefully, if you've done everything right, it's not going to be there. Like I feel like in any outdoor crop, apples and all that other stuff, corn, there is going to be mold. Cannabis, CBD, there's a little bit of mold out there, and they're going to be testing for that to make sure that there's not too much, but there's a little bit. But like this year, we've almost had zero. Like it's been really nice. And like the things that we have found is actually the caterpillars are really bad this year, and they were eating into the bud, and you could see, like I thought it was starting to mold, and I was getting all crazy, like, oh shit, we better get ready. And it was actually, we found caterpillars eating into it and causing the organic material to kind of die. But the bud was a nice healthy plant, and kind of like it only stayed in that one spot. Because a healthy plant will fight that stuff.
Yeah, and what about stuff like mites and that kind of, I see people are using fucking ladybugs and shit, buying ladybugs on Amazon.
You can have predatory aphids and predatory bugs and stuff like that. And that's real. If you do have aphids like really bad, or mites, that's a hard thing to do, because one, you take a bag of ladybugs and you throw it in a field. How are you going to get them to stay where you want? Like they'll just go wherever they want. So you have to consistently be hitting them with that. I think outdoors it's different than indoors, because indoors you can release those things, they stay in there.
Yeah, most of the ladybugs I've seen have been used indoors, and then you can just use a few of them. It seems so super effective.
Yes, absolutely. But outdoors, like really it's having a preventative spray. We've never, like this mites, like if you don't have spider mites outdoors because the sun kills them.
Okay.
There are aphids, but aphids do mess up your plant a little bit, and it sucks to have to think that your people are smoking aphids, because if you cut it down and cure it, there's going to be little skeletons on it.
I've never heard of caterpillars either. That was a new one.
Yeah, well, this year has been pretty bad with caterpillars, so they're everywhere.
I see those other caterpillars that they build the big like spider webs like up a tree. Dude, those motherfuckers.
10 caterpillars.
They're taking over.
Yeah.
Look, I'm running towards the end of the. Oh, Did we do packaging? Yeah, I think we did pack.
Yeah.
Oh, you said you're going with jars? Did we get that in it? Tins?
I think we found some tins that we like for most of our stuff. Yeah. We might do some jars for some of the bud and stuff, but we found like it's all uniform, it's all different sizes, so we can have our salve in it. We can have, yeah.
I'd like to know how that goes because you're the first person who is. I've talked to a couple of other people who thought about trying that, but decided not to. So keep me posted on that because I am super curious.
Yeah. Well, I'm also trying to make something that's a little bit different than, especially like, me and Matt talk about it a lot. Like, hey, what are you gonna use? Because I want to use this, so that we want both of our products in the stores, but we want to have different looking things so that we're both selling stuff, right? So looking at what other people are doing, the jars, the Huma pack stuff, I think a lot of people are using. But we found these tins that are pretty cute. They kind of look like little like maple syrup cans.
Oh, sick.
Yeah,
Oh.
so a little Vermonty thing. So yeah.
Nice. Hell yeah. Yep. That's it, dude. I always let's fucking wind it down here a little bit. Boy, I'm glad we made it through that. I am exhausted, man. I've just been on the phone for 3 days.
Hustling, baby. That's what I like to hear.
We got to go, man. Until October. I'll sleep on October 2nd.
Yeah, exactly.
So Chris, I want to thank you for your time, man, and wish you the best of luck. And I always leave the end open here. Oh, I forgot one. Are there any people in Vermont, any growers or any folks that you think we should maybe keep our eyes on here?
There's so many. I feel like I can mention a bunch and like not even cover them all. Like Life Arises Outdoor, like they grow some fire ass cannabis. Like the terps on are amazing. Quantum Genetics, Stone Leaf Cultivators, HBC. Like that's all no-till organic, like high bricks cannabis. Like that stuff's right up there, top notch. I can't even think. This Family Tree, those guys have some bumps. Off Pist, I'm sure you've talked to him a bunch. He does fire stuff.
Ben, yeah.
Eli, I know he's working with Off Pist. Like I bet he's gonna have.
I'd love to see what Eli's got.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm stoked to see all of it, man. Like and here in Lamoille County, we're trying to grow, and we have Lamoille Connect. We're throwing these events. We have Keep Growing coming up September 17th in the Oxbow in Morrisville. There's going to be 20 vendors there, cannabis people, that companies that are all going to.
I see you do a lot of events, huh?
Yeah, we've been doing events at Stowe Cider, Black Butt Diamond Barbecue, getting a couple hundred people to come. This one's going to be pretty big. This is the people that throw the Oxbow Music Festival. And they came to us. We have me, Lauren, and Matt have a company called Lamoille Connect, throwing events specifically, and said we want you to throw this party. So we've been working.
Dude, I used to do events for a fucking year. We should talk later.
So we have, some Grateful Dead cover bands coming in. We have 20 plus vendors, food trucks.
When is this?
September 17th.
All right.
It's called Keep Growing. We got tickets on Eventbrite. Follow us on Instagram at tcc.bt or hbcbt or Lindy's Candies or Lamoille County Cannabis.
Hell yeah.
And we're posting about it all the time. Get some tickets, and we want to see everybody there. We're getting into harvest season. Let's get together and have some fun.
My favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to leave it open for you because I always leave my guests with the last word. This has been fantastic. I'm glad to finally get this one on the books, man. You got any final notes for us?
No, man, I'm just really excited. It's been a journey to get here, along with everybody else that's here now that's really trying to make this happen. Whether there's some people that are just, we've been all working underground for so long, and to be able to have an opportunity to be a positive part, or to be known in the community as a legitimate business is nice. But don't think I don't see the people out there that aren't going, that can't go legal because of this or that, or still hustling. Like, mad respect to you guys too. And anyone that wants to try to get in this and be part of the community, like, I'm down to work with anyone, give advice, take advice. I know I need to, be told some things quite a bit. And so I'm just excited for all of this and to be part of it. And like, we're making history right now. So let's just nose to the grindstone and let's do this.
Great note to leave it on. Chris Moroch, Cannabis Collective. Man, I hope you have a great rest of the season, bro. I hope we can catch up sometime.
Yeah, come up to the farm, dude. Come check it out. It's fun walking around fields.
Say when.
Yeah, you tell me. I'm there every day.
Will do. All right. Take care, man. Thanks a lot for your time and good luck, buddy.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.